My name is Jackie Crabtree. I was born here in Benton County, actually Bentonville, 1954, and I was raised about 5 miles west of Pea Ridge.
Tell me about your parents.
My parents, they're natives here. My grandparents and on both sides of my family have long-time roots here in Pea Ridge area. Our family goes back probably mid-1800s in this area, so we've got a deep connection to this area. My mom and dad, my dad was a farmer and done cattle farming, that type of thing. He also worked construction. He worked for the Arkansas Highway Department for a few years, just different things. And my mom was pretty much stay-at-home mom. She worked at the back years ago when they had the tomato canning factory here in town. She worked there. My granddad Laughlin was actually the one that fired the boilers at the canning factory back years ago when it was here. So, like I say, we've got a long history in the community.
Tell me about your siblings. Did you have any siblings?
I had 4 siblings, two half brothers, a half sister, Charles Crabtree, Kenneth Crabtree, and Shirley Crabtree. I have a sister, Neoma Crabtree. They all have been in the area here. My brother Charles Crabtree was chief of police at Gravett for a number of years, so there's some police force history in our family also. But that's the only family that's here. The only family that I have remaining out of immediate family is my sister Neoma.
Well, tell me about what it was like growing up as a kid in Pea Ridge area. Where did you live and what did you do?
Well, growing up in Pea Ridge was kind of like anybody else in this area growing up. Grew up poor but didn't know it. And it was, I went to Bentonville School, graduated in Bentonville High School in 1972. But, we would make our weekly trips to the grocery store to buy our stuff. But I remember when I was a kid that, we had some cattle that we would milk, and we'd separate the cream from the milk, and we would churn the cream, and we had a little wooden block mold for a pound of butter, and we would do that. And we were fortunate though, we had an electric churn. We didn't have just the crank, we had an electric churn, and we would get those molded up, saved up for a little bit. Then we'd take that butter and eggs, and we'd go to Harlan Phillips store in Bentonville, and we would trade that butter and eggs for flour and sugar. So I remember back when you could still barter and get stuff. That's been a few years ago.
What year was that? Tell me more about it.
That was probably in the late 50s, early 60s.
What else? I mean, what else would people barter?
They would barter, chickens, different things, that type of thing. But that's what I mainly remember, that what we done. I'm sure Mom and Dad done a lot more of that I wasn't aware of, but that's what I remember. And I remember raising a few hogs for meat, and we'd raise enough corn to fatten them out. But before we could use the corn, we would gather up, weeds out of the garden that we didn't plant and feed them to the hogs, or we'd go out and pick up acorns to feed them, and then we'd feed them the corn to get the acorn taste out of the hogs before we butchered them. So it was, I don't know, I don't want to say poor people have poor ways, but we just done a lot of things that made sure that every penny counted on everything we done.
How would you contrast that to today? Does it seem, we talk about recycling, but it seems like, are we as more wasteful today?
We are to a point. We're more of a throwaway society today than what we ever have been before, and it's just so much easier to throw things away than it is to redo things, unfortunately.
Well, tell me about going to school. You said you lived close to the line. Talk about that.
Yeah, going to school when I was growing up, the road we lived on was the school district line between Bentonville and Pea Ridge. So I went to Bentonville School all 12 years. Started out first grade there, and then I actually graduated there in 1972. If I'd lived on the other side of the road, I would have come to Pea Ridge, which my parents, when my sister was younger, she went to Pea Ridge School here. I think she graduated Pea Ridge in '59, if I'm not mistaken on that, somewhere around in there. So she's 13 years older than I am.
So what was it like for you, and what was Bentonville like in those days?
Bentonville back then was pretty much the same size as Pea Ridge is today. It was about 5,000 whenever we graduated. So it's, the growth that's happened there is pretty much the same thing that's happened here.
So how did you end up as mayor? I mean, what was the career path that eventually landed you here?
My career path to this office is a little bit different. Before I became mayor, I was served one term on the school board, and that was because my wife and my son thought I ought to be on there. So they got out and got the petition signed to get me to run. So that forced me into doing that. And then when that term was over with, I thought, okay, this is I've done my term. I'm not going to do anything else, because politics just wasn't something that I ever even dreamed that I would be in. And then after that term was over with, we walk into church one Sunday morning. My pastor's wife shakes my hand and she says, "Good morning, Mr. Mayor." I looked at her kind of funny and I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You're going to be our next mayor." And I said, "You're crazy." I said, I'm not qualified for that." And the very next day, people started calling me and to run. And then the rest is history. This is year 28. So it was a little bit different path on getting me into a political office, and it wasn't a politically driven motivation to get me in this office, I guess I can say.
So you didn't dream to be mayor, you just kind of got railroaded by your church and your friends and your family?
Just about. During that time, prior to being mayor, I worked for Walmart for 31 years. Started out in warehousing and ended up in working information systems division. And during that time that they would ask me to run, I was still working for Walmart. And I was actually in Searcy, Arkansas, whenever the filing period was supposed to be, and had some folks call me, and it was a tough decision. And finally decided, well, I'll run if things work out okay. If it don't, okay, because it wasn't a dream of mine to be in a political office. So they faxed me my papers to sign up. I faxed them back, and then they got the petition signed for me and got me on the ballot.
So who'd you run against the first time?
There was, if I remember correctly, it was Colonel Joe Hart and a police officer that was had just left the force here, and I can't remember his name, but there was 3 of us running.
And what about in future years? Did you have opposition line?
I've had people run against me all except 2 terms. So there's been different ones that have run. There's been a council member that's run, or a couple of council members that's run. We had another individual that has run. So but it's all been good races. I don't believe in mudslinging, anything like that. I don't do anything to discredit anybody. I let them run on their own merits.
There's a lot of talk nowadays in the news of red and blue states and Democrats and all that kind of stuff. What have you witnessed over the years in city government? Do you see a lot of division there in politics?
Well, in city government, you really don't have the red and blue. We're independent. We don't go either Republican or Democrat, anything like that, and that really works out better for a small community, because getting into those kind of debates is really fruitless. You can't get anything done that way, and it really doesn't make any difference whether you're a Republican or Democrat. What makes the difference is what you're doing best for the community, and when you're doing that, you can make things happen. It's so many times people think that Well, just because I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, I have to vote for that party's viewpoints or whatever. Well, sometimes those type of things are not what is best for the community or for the state or even for the nation.
So talk about the issues over the years. I mean, growth, I assume, would be one of the biggest. And how have you dealt with the growth and with the council and the people in the city?
The issues we've dealt with over the years, naturally, as you just mentioned, are the growth. Most of it has just been trying to plan forward a little bit, being a little bit proactive on what is coming up. We've done water treatment plant improvements. We've done that just a couple of years ago. A few years before that, we've done some water line improvements. And main thing with that, like I say, is just trying to keep ahead of the curve on what's going on, making sure that you can provide the services for the individuals. Part of that is providing additional police force, and we've just last year been able to bring on full-time fire and EMS personnel. Before that, it's always been volunteer, which they've done a great job. There's no question about that. But it just come to the point where we had to have people there 24/7 to be able to handle that, because the population just demanded it.
What other issues have you faced besides the growth?
Funding. The other issues along with that is just sales tax funding and how we can manage with that. We have to be as frugal as we can with every penny we get in. And what some people don't understand is on our sales tax, the one we passed in 86, 87, it has specific percentages of a penny sales tax. And that percentage goes to specific departments. And what sometimes people don't understand is I can't take, if it says I have to put X number of percent in police, I can't take a penny of that and put it in fire, or admin or anything else. It has to go that, because that's just the way your state law is set up. And sometimes you may have a little bit overrun in one department and not enough in another. And it's hard for people to understand that I can't just move that around and make things balance out. It's not like that. But what has helped us over the years, though, is the 1 cent county sales tax, that we get a portion of that. So that's helped us with those budget issues over the years. And then last year we were able to pass another 1 cent sales tax, which that's divided up between street projects, fire and police, and then parks. The first portion of that will come off paying for our bond for our streets, and then the rest of that will be split up between police and fire and parks, however it's needed.
So what are some of your long-term plans for traffic? I notice you still have a four-way stop up here.
We're a little plans for traffic in the future. We're a little bit unique in that because our main arteries are state highways, and the state highway department actually controls how we do that. So it's we are qualified for stoplights at the four-way stop there and by the White Oak station. But funding to get that done is the next question. In 2008, I think it was going to be $2.5 million to put in a stoplight there. Between 1.5 and 2.5, I can't remember. Yeah, because you have to buy the right of way and you have to do all that. And it's an 80-20. The highway department, federal, will do 80% of it, and the city has to come up with the other 20%. Having the other 20% was just, it wasn't there. So it's, I think there are some plans in the future for that from the highway department to do some things. It's be the next few years down the road. They have done a study on Highway 72 between here and Bentonville, so they're going to be making some improvements on that from here. But getting back, talking a little bit about the highway issues and traffic and things. When I was growing up, I remember when we'd go to our one trip to town, either on one Saturday a month or maybe every other Saturday, we'd get started, and Mom and Dad started complaining about all the traffic, and I'm thinking, well, that's odd, because we might meet 5 cars. We knew everybody in those 5 cars. And now I get in the car to go Bentonville, Rogers somewhere, and I'm thinking, man, I don't want to drive in all this traffic. So it's funny how things loop around.
So working as mayor here for so long, you've gotten to know a lot of the county judges. Who are some of the county judges you've worked with over the years?
Some of the county judges I've worked with, of course, Mooring, Bob Kleinard, Gary Black, just Travis Harp, then,
Well, tell me about Gary Black. What was he like?
he was good to work, and Gary Black was good to work with. I actually worked for him when I was still working at Walmart. He was the warehouse manager when I was working for Walmart, so I worked with him, had a long relationship with Gary even before he became judge, so that was it was good. I've always had, with all the county judges, been able to work with them and not really had any issues with any of them. They've always been very good to work with me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about regional planning and some of the intergovernmental meetings where you have, sometimes you'll have multiple elected officials from, and sometimes more than one county, sometimes Benton and Washington. So what are some of the long-term planning you've done over the years?
Well, working with the regional planning piece of it, I've been involved with the roads, with the bike and ped plans, with a little bit with the Razorback Greenway. It's part of the Regional Mobility Authority, that type of thing. And talking about that regional planning, and the neat thing about Northwest Arkansas that I don't think you'll find in any other part of the state, and then from talking with different people from around the state, is we'll fight tooth and toenail for our city. But if it comes to where it's going to be something that's going to be located or done at another city, then we get behind them and everybody works for that city. It's not the well, since I didn't get it, I'm not going to help you. Everybody works together, and that's the main thing that I've seen over the years with regional planning, is because everybody was willing to work together to make sure things got done. It wasn't just one of these that, well, we didn't get it, so we're not going to help you on that. We're going to go do something else. It's been a real honor, I guess I should say, to be able to be a part of that.
So what was the last big long-term plan that you did here for the city, and what would it have included?
That probably would have been the last big plan we've done for the city. It's probably been the wastewater treatment plant. That project that we done, that was an $8 million project that we done for the water sewer system. Probably along with that would be the sales tax we just passed last year, and that was a 2 or 3 year project, trying to figure out what the best way to do that, how to apportion it, whether it be a percentage going to the departments, things like that. So wastewater treatment plant and the sales tax, I think, would be the last two major things that we've done.
What about this facility? I noticed this seemed, to me at least, somewhat unique, that you have a city and the courts and the school in the same building. What was the story behind that?
Well, this facility, the story behind this is that you won't find another one like it in the state of Arkansas. And you may not even find another one like it in the country. Yeah, several years ago, Rick Neal, the superintendent of schools at that time, they needed more administration offices because of the growth of the school. And we needed more room because of the growth in our courtroom at our old city hall. Our courtroom there would seat about between 70 and 90 people. And we were having as high as 200 people in court. So we both needed new facilities. And we had been looking at that for quite some time, and to go out and get a tax-producing piece of property to put a city hall on just wasn't what I thought would be right to spend our money on. And Mr. Neal came in the office one day and he said, "I've got an idea." He said, "We've got some land." He said, "Why don't we build a combination building? City hall be on one side, school offices be on the other side, and the center of it we can have for city council, school board, courtroom, planning commission, anything that we need to use that facility for, then that can be done that way, and we can split the cost on it." The school owned this property, said we'll donate the property for that. So we got together and I said, "Man, that's a great idea." So we got together and started planning on that. And of course, it had to go through the school board, get their approval, and go through our city council to get that approval, and then start the process. And we've got a fantastic facility that is top notch. It's top notch. And we're so fortunate to be able to work with the school. And the other thing is too that we share a technology director with the school. So anything with our IT for the city, he's able to help us out on that. So we cover part of what he does for the city, and then he works full time for the school. So it's just been a great thing for Pea Ridge. The Pea Ridge School District and the city of Pea Ridge works together better than any other district I know of.
That's interesting. Have other cities or schools come to look at this as a model or tried to copy it since then, or do you know?
Other cities and school districts have come and looked at us. They have marveled at the process on it. Some of the questions they have is, how do you work together that well? Because seems to be sometimes there's a little bit of friction between the school board and the city council for whatever reason, or there's friction between the school patrons and the citizens of the city, and they really like the idea. They just haven't figured out how to get it done yet. I'm sure it'll be done in other districts around the state at some point in time.
Well, do you think having them together diffuses problems, or does it make them worse?
Having us together like this diffuses them. We work together really well. There's just trying to sit and think off the top of my head, we haven't had any kind of issues. And what the nice thing of it is, my office sits in this corner, and just right directly catty corner from my office is the superintendent's office. So if there's anything going on, it's not waiting to try to get in his office or get in a phone call or anything. I'll get up and walk over to his office, or he'll get up and come over to my office, and we get a chance to sit down and visit with things and get those things diffused real quick. And part of how all this was set up, whenever we set this up, our city attorney set it up so it was a horizontal property regime the way it's set up. The city owns this piece of it, the school owns their offices of it, and then we co-own the centerpiece of it. And we also have it set up in the deed that if there's any dissension between the school board or the city council, there's a 3-step process to go through to resolve that issue. So it goes through one. If that doesn't resolve it, it goes to the next step. If that doesn't resolve it, then the 3rd step is a final decision that people that are not with the city and are not with the school make that final decision for us.
So what are the 3 choices?
The first one is, I think there's a school board member and a city council member. If they can't get it done, then it goes to the next level, which is another school board, it's another mayor of another city, another superintendent. They talk about it, and if that doesn't work out, then we get some impartial people that have no interest in either one of them. They come in and look at it and say, okay, you're going to do this. But it's all written in the deed. And the reason we done that is just a simple fact is, over time you're going to have people that disagree, and we didn't want a portion of either a mayor or a superintendent or a school board member or a city council member going, I just don't like this, and throw some kind of monkey wrench in it and split it up.
But so far so good?
Everything is really working out fantastic.
And what about your PD? How has it grown over the years, and where's it housed and that kind of thing?
The Pea Ridge Police Department, when I first took office, we had 3 officers. One officer, we just got a new police chief. The prior administration had hired a new police chief and a couple of officers. And the first part of the year, we had to get rid of one of the officers that hired. February of that next year, the police chief that we'd hired, he was an older fellow out of Texas, C.W. Yarrow. He ended up becoming very ill and passed away, and then that left just one officer. I ended up hiring another police chief, and then it wasn't but just a few months after that we ended up having to let the other officer go because of some issues with him. So we had one officer for a long time, and then we were able to put on, two additional officers, and so over the time we were up to 15 officers now.
So, what's the caseload? I mean, and do y'all take them all into Benton County, or how does it, what are the mechanics of it?
The way our police department runs is anyone we arrest here, we take to Benton County. And we pay Benton County for their room and board if it's a city issue. If it's other than a city issue, then that's handled by Benton County with their prisoner rates. But yeah, everything goes through Benton County. We're also dispatched through Benton County through CENTCOM. So, and
How does that work?
Works really well. Our police chief and the county sheriff have a really good working relationship. Our officers in the county have a real good working relationship. So there's been no issues. The only issue we had one time was when our telephone company decided, because we had our telephone, our office number at the police department forwarded to 911, and they were doing a audit of our phone numbers, and they decided that number didn't need to be forwarded. So whenever they were calling our police department office, it wasn't going anywhere. So that was about a day's issue on that, and then got a hold of the phone company and got that straightened out. It wasn't 911, it was just other things that was coming into the office.
What about your local, like your Chamber of Commerce stuff? What have those guys done over the years to build business out here? What can you tell me about them?
Well, locally, we did not have a chamber. We are per se of Pea Ridge proper. We are part of the Greater Bentonville Area Chamber of Commerce, and they work with us as much as they can, trying to get things here. Back several years ago, there was a pretty prominent Pea Ridge Chamber of Commerce, but over time that just kind of faded away. Different people either left town, got another different job or something like that. So we kind of faded away, and then we tried to do a chamber on our own at one time and just couldn't get the momentum behind it to make it work, and that's how come we're part of the Bentonville Chamber. And they work real well with us. They do what they can. Of course, there's no, we don't pay them a fee as far as being part of that. We're just part of them as being a city.
Rogers took Lowell, they took. What about housing? It looks like there's a lot of stuff that may be coming in pretty recently that's going in right now. In fact, I just saw a subdivision over by the Big Flag that had like, brand new houses going in for $400,000. So talk about the housing, how it's changed.
Yes, our population growth has just been, since about 2000, has just been really going crazy. We have issued certificates of occupancy for 118 houses so far this year. And in 2008, we done almost 400 homes on certificate of occupancies. So it's our school system, and of course Walmart bringing vendors in has, like Northwest Arkansas, has really contributed to where our growth is.
So do most people live here? They work Rogers, Bentonville, where?
Yeah, most people live here. They work in Rogers, Bentonville, and now after we've gotten they can live here, but they can work over the internet. We have one individual that works for our fire department that actually works for a company out of New Jersey, I think, but he chose to live here. And I think we'll see a lot more of that over the years, as people can live where they want to and work where they need to.
What changes has the city made after COVID?
After COVID, the changes that we made is a little bit with doing more online meetings, just like some of the regional planning meetings. We've done some of those online. Some of the other things we've done online. We've been able to make it where people can do like set up water accounts, that type of thing, without coming into the office. We've done a few things there. But overall, it's pretty much business as normal.
So talk about your staff here. You have one clerk that's been here, I think, 4 decades. Can you tell me a little bit, who is that and what has she done?
Our staff here is incredible. We have our city clerk. This is I think her about 45 years with the city of Pea Ridge, and she's been here. She was actually city clerk whenever I took office, and the institutional knowledge that she has is just incredible. And her name is Sandy Button.
So tell me about Sandy. Sandy is,
Well, Sandy is Sandy. She's very energetic as far as making things happen. She's very meticulous about making things sure that things are done right. Of course, with being city clerk, she's responsible for our financials and going through the audits. And I have to say that over the years, excuse me, of our state audits, we have had very, very few findings. And if they are findings of any sort, they're very minute, because she is very particular about the way things are done. And we get new department head or something come in, and they, she lines them out on getting things done right whenever they're doing expenses.
so she makes you feel like she's got your back on the books?
Absolutely, she has my back on the books, yes.
What else would you tell me about some of the other staff that have been here for the years, or maybe some of your department heads, fire chief, stuff like police?
Some of the other staff, our fire chief, Jared Powell, has just been with us for about a year and a half now. He was on as full-time. He was on as a volunteer before that. Our actual first full-time fire chief was Jack Wassman, who had retired from the city of Rogers. Then before that, they'd all been volunteer fire chiefs, and it was everybody from back years ago when they first started just done a fantastic job of doing with what they had. And then we finally got to the point where we had to have a full-time staff. Our police department, Chief Lynn Hahn, has been with us for about 5-6 years. He's been our chief for the last 2.5 years. He has been privileged with the Benton County Sheriff's Office. And like I mentioned earlier, we have 15 officers. We have Ken Hayes is our water superintendent. He's been with us about 15 years, something like that. And he's, of course, runs the water system and the wastewater system. We have Kim Thornhill, who is our bookkeeper for the water department, office manager. She's been with us 25 years. So it's we have some really long term staff here. We have our bookkeeper here, Starla Billington. She's been with us about 10 years, and also Jennifer Carney, who is our court clerk at assistant. She's been with us about 10 years. And the thing I think I say about all of our staff is they're very meticulous about what they do. They want to make sure things are done right, and they're very conscious of any kind of cost things that need to be taken care of.
If you had to tell somebody who'd never been to Pea Ridge about your little town here, what would you tell them?
If somebody hadn't been to Pea Ridge, I would tell them to come see our mule jump. Our mule jump is a really unique thing, and it's sometimes that's what Pea Ridge is known for. It happens the second Saturday of October every year, and it started out with the coon hunters back in years ago. Of course, back then when they done the coon hunting, they would ride mules. They'd come to a fence. They would take the saddle off the mule, put the blanket over the fence, jump the mule across the fence, then go on about their hunting. Well, they was having a coon dog show, and what come into the issue was, well, my mule can jump higher than your mule, and that's kind of where the whole thing in a nutshell started. So what it is, it's a covered barrier, and they walk the mule up to it, and with either voice or rope commands, they get them to jump over the barrier. And they are separated between a 51 hands high and lower, and then 51 and above. And I think the highest jump that we ever had is over 6 foot by a 50-inch mule. And it's a standing jump. It's not a running jump. It's a standing jump. They will stand there. They will kind of squat on their haunches, and over they go.
A 5 foot, and now tell me, how big was the mule and how high did it jump?
50 inches tall. It went over 6 foot. So what he couldn't see over, he jumped over. The other thing too, I think, would be that is the Pea Ridge National Military Park would be something that people would want to see if they come to Pea Ridge. There's an interesting detail about Pea Ridge too, is on the street naming. All of our streets in Pea Ridge, any east-west street is named after a Confederate participant in the Battle of Pea Ridge. Any north-south street is named after a Union participant in the Battle of Pea Ridge. And it's not segregated as far as rank or anything. It's just when developers come in, they want to do a new subdivision, we have a list of the participants, and they go through that, and that's where they pick out their street names. So it's like having a first, second, third street. We don't have anything like that. It's all participants of the battle. So history here is really prominent on every corner. You can look at each street sign, and you can go back in history and find out what that individual done.
And speaking of prominent history, what's the story on the guy with the big Confederate flag? Whose is that, and is he making a political statement, or what's the story?
Yeah, he's an individual that is that's on his own property, and we really have no control over that.
So how long's it been up?
It's been up maybe 6 months or so. He'll put it up for a while, and then he'll take it down. And it's just I don't think it's really a political statement. It's just him.
Has it been a big to-do, or people ignoring it, or what?
People pretty much ignore it.
I hadn't heard anything about it until I drove out here and saw it. I thought that was...
Yeah, people pretty much ignore it.
Huh, interesting. So what about your, you had something else to say?
Yeah, and the other thing about coming to Pea Ridge is really our school system is one of the draws that they have to come here. We have part of the school system is a Pea Ridge Manufacturing and Business Academy, which is a conversion charter school. Kids actually learn a skill or a trade that they can take with them. So it's not the premise of everybody has to go to college to get a degree. It's everybody can do either. They can either go to college or they can do a trade or something to be productive. And what we found is kids that didn't want to be in school because they didn't think it was relevant, they want to be there. They want to learn. And on the other piece of it is kids that some of them, when their parents do a certain job, they think that's what they want to do. Well, some of this gives them a chance to actually get their hands dirty on doing that. And it gives them a chance to say, yeah, I really like this, or no, I don't want that. So it gets them out of that point in time when they're 2 years down the road in college going, I don't like this, but they're too far in debt with student loans to make changes. So.
Oh, good. Tell me more about the park. How has the city and the park worked together over the years?
The Pea Ridge National Military Park and the city has been partners for a number of years. We work together as far as any kind of events, any kind of things like that we can help them with. I'm actually chairman of the Pea Ridge National Military Park Foundation board, so we work really close hand in hand on that. It's just a piece of history that we help them promote as much as we can.
What other big things are going on here in your town that I haven't thought to ask about?
Other things that are going on in town right now, as people come through, they can see the new construction going on in front of the neighborhood market, which is, we've got a Domino's Pizza going in there. We've got AutoZone auto parts there. We've got Plaza Tire that's there. There'll be a Wendy's there. And then there's another piece there that's property that there's plans on that I'm not real sure exactly what it is yet or not. I don't think they've been finalized on that. So that's growing there. We're going to have some apartment complexes on the south side of that piece of property going in there. I think about 50 units on that's going on there. But I think one of the neat things that's going on in Pea Ridge right now, though, is the zip line, the drone delivery. And what that drone delivery is, they have a app. You go on the website, you can order your product, and they'll deliver it to you by a drone. Then it's a drone. It's not the little helicopter drone like a lot of people think about a drone. This is actually a unmanned aircraft of sorts. The fuselage is a little bit over 8 feet long. The wingspan is about 11 feet, and they can carry up to 4 pounds. And right now they can go line of sight, but whenever they get full FAA release on what they can do, they can go as far as 50 miles out. So they can go as much as to Springdale, almost Fort Smith radius on that. And it's when you sign up for it, you'll get your address on it. They'll look at your address, and then they'll find a place in your property that would be a good spot that they can drop a parachute on. They will ask you if that's okay with you, and you tell them yes on that. Then after that, you just go in, you order your product, and whenever they ship it, they'll send you a text message saying it's on the way. And when it gets close to your property, they'll send you another text message saying it'll drop in X number of minutes, and then it'll let you know it's in the drop zone. And where they set up on my house, the first one I had delivered there was about 2 feet away from where they pinned it on my property. It's just absolutely amazing what they do with that.
So what's the cost to bring it down?
There's no additional cost.
It's just in the price of
no, it's whatever. It's the same price as what you'd go in the store and buy something for. It's absolutely amazing. This company has done amazing work over in Africa, delivering blood supplies to hospitals, remote hospitals. They've been able to consolidate the blood supplies in areas over there, so that hospitals, they can just call in, they can get the blood supply on there, and they can have a blood supply going back to that hospital within less than 10 minutes back to that hospital. And they can have it there just within a few minutes. So it's saved lives, it's cut the costs, it's cut the spoilage of blood. It's just amazing what they've been able to do with that.
Oh, what an interesting story.
It really is, and it's amazing to watch those things fly too. They're launched in a catapult system, like on an aircraft carrier, and when they come in, they've got a little hook on the tail end of the plane that when it gets to a certain place, they've got, if you go by the facility up there, you'll see a little A-frame up there. When it gets to a certain point, it'll flip up a wire, and it'll catch on that tail hook and bring it down. They'll get it, and it's all battery powered. Everything. It's an amazing piece of technology. And we're the first place in the United States that they've done a test on that. So
interesting. I just have one more question here to ask you. Oh, I'm actually going to ask you two. How would you complete this sentence? My favorite thing about Benton County is.
My favorite thing about Benton County is probably the people. I don't think you'll find anywhere in the country people that are more friendly and willing to help than in Benton County. They're just special.